International Women's Day in a very meaningful manner. We take this challenge intellectually, mentally, and spiritually. Today is a day which is a very, when you talk about this Women's Day, you are very passionate about it, especially women. We are very passionate about it. What is there to celebrate is one of the questions that we also encounter. And my dear students, we are celebrating our way to emancipation, which is in due process. We should not, our speed should not be lessened. We should consolidate all our strength, get together, and find our way out. This is what actually is expected from, the kind of global movement that's going on this important day. See, in 1914, we were talking about, rights of the woman. Now we have the rights, voting rights and other rights. Still, women is languishing. How is that we can solve these problems? How is that we can, consolidate our own strengths? Because to fight in a patriarchal world is not an easy job. What is exactly, my dear students, what is exactly that we are looking for? We are questioning the culture of patriarchy. You do your research, you work out different theses, you work in the field, because for women's studies, field is our laboratory. We look for social realities there. We look for the positive visibility of women. Where are the women? Where have all the women gone? Though we see women everywhere, we don't see them in the national income records for which, the country is accountable. We are accountable. What happens to our skill? What happens to our merits? What happens to our talents? Is a big question that's there in front of us. We need to build an organizational network. Now, this is a network. You'll be talking to Nisha Bora ma'am today. This is a network that you're building on your own. Hands in hands, we go together and look for the solutions. I am so happy that Nisha Bora, who happens to be the daughter of Professor Sheila Bora, one of our teachers, one of our mentors, one of the most significant names in Assam, who has also been instrumental in, running this women's movement in this part of the country. She has been in our advisory board of women's studies, Tezpur University. She had been working in the Brugger University, and we are so happy, we are so glad that her daughter Nisha Bora has come up to that zenithal level. And I could read her, introduction, her biodata, and I was so impressed that yes, we have an Assamese woman, who has come to this level. I would like to thank Nisha Bora for accepting, our invitation, for agreeing to talk to our students and other people. A lot of people from outside have also joined Nisha today to hear you. And once this talk from her side is over, we will open it up for interaction. And this is going to be a meaningful interaction. Students, we welcome you in this semester to this Orientation Women's Week, which will be very meaningful for you, and we need your active participation in that. I thank Nisha Bora, and I hand over the next session to my colleague, Dr. Moushumi Mohanto, who will be taking on the charge for the rest of the program. Dr. Moushumi.
Thank you, ma'am. Warm welcome to Center for Women's Studies, dear students. I wish you all a very happy International Women's Day. So today we have with us Nisha Bora. See, I just want to give her a brief introduction of her. So Nisha Bora is a social and of community as also manages a non-profit conservation-based trust named Prabhakar Memorial Trust, which forwards inclusive conservation around Assam's forest ranges. With 20 years of a career in the research industry and 8 years in the social impact factor, her core technical competence is qualitative research and consumer insights. Her commitment to social science has been seeded by her own sustainability initiatives, which are creating new ways to look at inclusive sustainability and conservation. Nisa is a graduate in sociology from Delhi University, a certified sourcing professional from SIG University. So some of her important recognitions are L'Oreal Femina Women of the Year Environment 2018, Global Sourcing Council 3S Award for Climate Change in 2017, Millennium Alliance Sustainability Category Finalist 2017, Karambir Puraskar Award for Social Transformation in 2015, and multiple media mentions including key platforms as SCRLL, PRI, MOGBE, and the Beto India CNBC Awards. So Nisa is a staunch believer in the idea that small actions leads to big outcome. So I would like to request Nisa Bora now to continue with her speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanto, Dr. Goswami before that. And a very, very warm good morning to all of you. I'm so delighted to be here for your first session because I'm hoping it means that everybody's wide awake and alert and super excited to be here because I'm absolutely excited to be here to know, especially now that I know that it's your first session for the entire semester because I think we get to sort of seed new thoughts. It's a big honor for me to be speaking to all of you on the occasion of Women's Day. And the brief to me as I came in today was, so I wasn't sure, is this about my entrepreneurial journey? Is this about my journey as a female entrepreneur? And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. And I spoke, in fact, to some of the organizers yesterday. And I said, you know, what really are we going to be doing for 1 hour? And I figured that there is no way for me to separate my conversation about my journey as an entrepreneur from that of my journey as a woman because they are so tightly interlinked. So I will spend some time basically talking to you about what I do, how I got to being here, etc. Before I begin, can I just check that everybody is able to hear me clearly? Is that accurate? Can somebody just sort of confirm that I'm audible, nice and loud?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool, lovely. Yes, I also want to say that to hear that Milind is going to be coming sometime later, I have great respect and regard for Milind, and I'm telling you guys, make the time and effort to definitely listen to him because what the stuff is, his journey is absolutely revolutionary, and he's a real warrior, and I find him extremely inspiring. So that is, I think you are privileged to have him come and speak with you. All right. So about me. My name is Nisha Bora. I'm 45 years old. And, if I was to ask to describe myself, I would typically describe myself as entrepreneurial, very headstrong, and a solution seeker. I've often struggled with my definition of who I am. But I think, and I've tried to sort of, make it a point, link my identity with the fact that I whose daughter I am, whose mother I am, what work I do, because these are all external to me, right? Who I really am is this woman, 45 years old, with some pretty clearly defined personality traits that I think have more or less determined where I go, what I do, and why I do it. So that's me. And then in my ecosystem, there are 2 children. I have a daughter, she's 15 and a half years old, and I have a son, he's 10 years old. They both go to school in Bombay. I live in Bombay. And I have a very supportive husband which is a big factor in my being able to do the work that I do. So he takes care of the kitchen, he runs the dishwasher, he runs the washing machine, he does the laundry and the grocery, he does the grocery shopping, a lot of that kind of thing. And I think that's really important to place up front, because we might have, we create these role models for ourselves that are sometimes so difficult to reach, and we set expectations on ourselves which are just somehow debilitating almost. So I think it's important, that's why, to clarify the role of the ecosystem. Whether you're a male or a female, there is an ecosystem that is very much a part of who you are and where you are going or where you have gotten so far. I also have a dog who's delightful and very moody. So that is me. And I'm going to, before I begin to talk about my journey, I want to talk to you about why it makes such a difference to me to be speaking to you on Women's Day. And I have to say that, till quite recently, I never actually understood why it's a big deal. Like, why should we celebrate Women's Day? Because every day should be Women's Day, right? The fact that we call out Women's Day as Women's Day, to my mind, is problematic. It reflects a lacunae. It reflects already the absence of validation. So we seek validation once a year in this particular way. I'm today not sure, ambivalent. Okay, I'm not so sure how I feel about this, but I have to say that it took me till about 40 years of age to understand how intricately and how strongly gender was linked with my identity, and how it defined my consciousness, like how it defined how I think, how I act, the choices that I make. And therefore, it's impossible to not recognize that my being female is very central to my life choices. And I think I have more, in that sense, I do believe that I have more power than my male counterparts, and I'll talk to you about why. So it's one of the things that I want to put center stage, and I always do these days. So one of the things is, for example, I want to give you an example. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whenever we first started Del Rhino and I was still quite new into the enterprise, I used to get asked a lot, what is your experience as a female entrepreneur? What is your experience as a female? And that too, I work in manufacturing. I work in an industrial area where the only factories, and they're only males. Like, you don't even see any females. I mean, you don't see female bosses for sure. There are no female bosses in the industrial area where I work. So much so that I can't spend the night. We built a place to live near my factory, and I'll talk to you about the factory, but just about gender. We built a place for me to, where we could spend the night, because it's quite far from Guwahati. But then my team said, don't live here, because, it's a bit dangerous. The men come out at night and they drink. So I never lived there because physically I'm not safe. So I used to get asked, what is your experience? What are the challenges you face as a female entrepreneur? And I always used to say that, I have the privilege of coming from a family where I have a mother who is pretty well known in Assam as a feminist thought leader. I have never had, at least in my family, any sense of being any lesser than a male for any reason. So I always used to say, I'm not so sure that personally it's valid for me to answer this question. Like, I don't believe that I have any disadvantage. But I have to say again, reaching my 40s, reaching a certain age of my life, or my children having reached a certain age, perhaps it was because my daughter was turning 14, 15, 16, and I was watching her struggles as a girl compared to that as a boy. Whatever the reason is, but I feel today quite clearly that a female entrepreneurial journey is quite distinct from a male entrepreneurial journey, and I will talk about it. But just coming back to why, that is why it is so special for me to talk to you on Women's Day. So, my journey as an entrepreneur, let me tell you about what I do and how I got to doing it. I started work straight after college. As you can see, that is why I have a graduation degree, and I never did a post-graduation. That was made very many years ago. As I said, I'm 45 years old. And I came from a family of intellectual stalwarts. My mother is a double Fulbright scholar. She is very, intellectually, she's pretty well known in Assam. My sister was a topper. I was a topper. Right through school, you top. There is such an expectation, at least I felt. There was such an expectation that you'll go on and do your IAS, or you'll do your MBA. My sister went to IIM Ahmedabad. Then she went to Paris and she did a double MBA. So all of this By the time I was 16, 17, I said, 20, 21, I said, you know what? I'm tired. Like, I don't want the burden of these expectations. Forget it. I'm going to work for a few years, develop my own view of the world and my own expectations of myself, and then I'll come back and study. And so after graduation, I started to look for work. And my mother had told me then, she said, once you step out, you're not going to step back in. And I said, Boo, what do you know? I know myself better than you. But of course, she was right. And I went back to studies. Today, I am pursuing, I have to say, by long distance education. I'm pursuing an MA because I want to do a PhD actually. But that was the first big choice that I made in my life, which was to say that, I'm going to work straight out of college. And then I did not know what work I wanted to do. I mean, at 20, 21, how do you know what you want to do? How do you decide what career you want to take? I mean, I know some people are very clear about what they like. I really admire people, who say, like, when they are 16, they say, I want to be an artist, I want to be a musician, I want to be a doctor. I don't know what their parents feed them and how they are brought up, but hats off to them. I didn't have that clarity. I have to be very clear. And so I went out and I said, okay, I was studying in Delhi those days. I had finished my college out of Delhi, and I said, well, I'm sick and tired of Delhi. It's such a, whatever, it's so boring. I want to go to another place. And somebody told me that if you go to Bombay, it will be very expensive to live there. So you shouldn't go to Bombay. So by default, my next choice seemed to be Bangalore. So I told my parents were really horrified. They were really upset with me that without a plan, nothing, I got on a train with a suitcase, went to Bangalore, found literally from the railway station one PG accommodation, and I arrived somewhere in Bangalore, and my parents said, we can't support you, these awful life choices that you're making. I said, forget it, I'll find a job in the first week. But the thing is, I did. And I think again, so my life, I think, is a series of lucky coincidences, okay? What did I say? I said, I can talk, I can write English pretty well. I used to always score high marks. Let me become a copywriter in an ad agency because I can write. And those days, you had those fat books called the yellow pages, the telephone directories. And I basically went to an STD booth. I took the directory, I looked for advertising agencies, and I started phoning advertising agencies. One after the, I sat in a phone booth for hours, and I would phone from a PCO saying, I want to come for an interview. It is also my privilege that those were days when people didn't think it was strange if you did those things. People had the time to meet strangers. I got so many interviews, I can't tell you, and such lovely people I met in those interviews. But one of them was a man named Subhash Kamath. He went on to head an advertising agency called Trikaya Gray. He's one of advertising's biggest names today. He took me out for lunch. He met me for half an hour. Then he said, come and join me for lunch. I sat with him for lunch. He listened to me for more than 1.5 hours. And at the end of it, he said to me, Nisha, I've heard everything you've said, and I can assure you, you don't want to do advertising. What you want to do is called research. You want to do market research because, and he listed out many reasons why he said market research was good for me. And he told me, this is the name of the agency, go and apply there. And I kid you not, I'm telling you, straight out of college, like randomly, some stranger telling me, go and apply there, and I applied there. And at that research agency, which is called Quantum Consulting Services today, and it is India's best known qualitative research agency. They do incredible work. And again, it was absolutely my privilege and my good luck that they said, okay, you can come in for an entrance test. And the entrance test is a creative test. Okay, they ask you lots of projective techniques. It's a partly psycho, partly emotional sort of mapping thing that they do. They did all that with me, and then they said, you're underqualified. Okay, you don't, we don't take postgraduate, we don't take undergraduate. So what we are going to do is we are going to give you like an assistant's role where, you'll be serving chai, you'll be moving papers from desk to desk, stuff like that. If you want to take that. I was desperate for a job by that time. I had no money. I said, Bhaiya, it's okay. You give me an assistant's job also, I'll take it. Just give me a job. So I joined that agency as a research assistant, which was basically to help researchers by, fetching their things, fixing their appointments, that kind of thing. And again, my good luck, I got to work on a piece of analysis. They really liked it. And within 6 months, I had become a senior researcher at the firm. And from there, my work life basically began. I had a great time. So again, I had the privilege of having people give me such amazing advice. Subhash Kamath said, do market research, and it changed my life. I did market research just because I had no other options, but I absolutely loved it. It was intellectually very stimulating. But the bigger thing is, and to me, this is the big point of the story that I want to leave with you, that I got a lot of validation from the world. I kept getting told by people that I was good at it. And this is one thing, if you're considering heading out on an entrepreneurial journey, I think it's really important for you to prioritize those voices. Be clear and aware of what you're good at. Listen, when somebody says that you're doing something really well, pay attention, because that's the secret, right? That's where you are going to have to hone your skills and become better and better till a point where you're not replaceable. At least for me, that was research. And of course, I was too young. I did not recognize the validity, like the potential of what they were saying. But I want to tell you that 2 years later, I worked with them for close to 2 years, and I went and I told them that I want to resign. And they said, "You are mad, you're giving up such an amazing career, you're doing so well, why are you resigning?" I had great mentors there, like really people who really cared for me. And I said, because my heart is not in it. Like, I'm intellectually very good at it. It's intellectually very challenging, and I enjoy it at an intellectual level very much. But I am my father's daughter. My father's a very idealistic man. He used to write poems and he used to sing about how we must do things for Assam and all this kind of thing. And I had this kida. And I said, my market research work is not telling me how I'm making the world a better place. And therefore, it's not my calling. And they said, "What will you do?" And I said, "I don't know what I will do, but I know that I can't keep doing this. I have to find something else." That was in the year 2000. From there till 2012, I bhatkoed for 12 years. I did many different things, but I did not find my calling. And largely those 12 years, I continued to do market research with the same firm, Quantum. But what I did was I became a consultant to them. I said, I will not join you on a salary, because that gives me then the flexibility of being able to make choices, of taking some time out to do other work, etc. I had the privilege of having already been good enough at my job where they still wanted me on that basis. And so this is my other big thing to you. If you decide to take risks, professional risks, where income is important to you, then it's really important that you strategically think through first how you are going to ensure your income, because sometimes it might not come from your risk-taking venture, at least at the start. I was really fortunate. They said the work kept coming. They said, "Okay, we'll see if we have work to give you," but the work kept coming. The clients kept asking for me. So I kept basically earning money without actually being on a salary. Then the other big thing that happened in my life was that I kept saying, so I tried many different things. Okay, I worked with a social research company at that time. I mean, I tried many, many different things, but it was not fitting for me, and I was on this search. But in the meantime, I also had this other kida in my head. I had, for some reason, told myself that I want to have at least one child before I am 30 years old. And why was that? I'm not so sure. Okay, I don't remember why. Not 30. I had decided that I wanted to have both my children before I said I want 2 children in my life, and I want them to be born before I'm 30, and I know why. Because I said I want them grown up. By the time I retire, I want to be done. I want no more financial obligations. I want to be free to make my own life choices, to do things that I really enjoy. So this burden of having children, bringing them up, I want to finish it as fast as possible. And so I said by 30, 2 kids. And there was no man, just the plan that there were going to be 2 children and my job would be done. I have to say that after that, I did meet my husband and we started to date, and then we got married, and my first child happened soon after. That changed some things for me. This was my other thing. My other issue was that I had also said that I grew up with a working mother, and she was amazing, and I have great regard, but I wanted to try the other life. So I said I wanted to be a mother that stays at home and takes care of the children. I don't want to go out to work. Also, because I lived in Bangalore, I had no support, right? So if I go out to work, who's going to take care of my child? Like a baby, how do you leave a baby with a maid? My mother lived in Assam. My mother-in-law, I'm married to a man from Goa. So my parents-in-law live in Goa. Who takes care of my children? So I decided I'm not going to work. My baby was born, and within 6 months, I think I was in the pits of depression. I hated my life. I hated my husband. I wanted to run away somewhere with my baby and be alone in a corner. I hated everything. I hated my body. And no, but I think we don't talk enough about postnatal depression. I don't know how many of you have children who are listening in, but if you have children, you know that your body goes through certain changes. There are chemical responses to childbirth, and postnatal mental health is a real issue, and we don't discuss it in this country. Again, my good luck, Quantum called me one day when my daughter was about 6 months old and said, Nisha, we are really overworked. There's just one small project, one small piece of analysis. Please, will you do it? We know you're busy and you don't want to work, but please, will you take it? I took it. And that work made me feel alive again. It made me feel like, oh my God, I'm not going crazy. It's not that the only thing I'm doing is feeding the baby, cleaning the potty, cooking the food, cleaning the house. I'm doing intellectual work, which I needed. I needed for my own sense of like just well-being. So after that, it was a one-way street. I did get back to work. I started consulting back again quite rigorously. That was the first part of my research existence. And then I came into social entrepreneurship in 2012, not because of myself, but because accidentally my father made the choice to start an organization called El Rhino. And El Rhino was an organization, is an organization that works. We make paper with sustainable, with natural waste. We use elephant dung, rhino dung, scrap cotton, and we use lots of other stuff to make paper. But it's all naturally sourced waste. So essentially what we do is we prevent trees from being cut, and we also make sure that money from the paper goes back into the community that are sharing space. In the hope that it will contribute to reducing animal and man conflict. Our paper is amazing. The concept is considered unique, so we get featured a lot. So if you just research El Rhino and put my name against it, you'll get like a lot of material out there. Most recently, we've been covered by Scroll with a very nice video film. But the point is, it is not my idea. It was my father's. He wanted to do this because he said, I want to give back to the environment. I worked in he was a coal miner. And as a coal miner, you cut trees to take out coal. And I think, he wanted to put back into the environment. So he got some land, applied for a loan. Now, during this process, when my father used to talk about this dream of making paper, everybody used to tell him, listen, you're retired now, take it easy. Why would you start a new thing now? You don't know anything about all this, It's foolish. And I was the only one in the entire universe who told him, this is what you want to do. If this is your dream, you should pursue it. Because you work your whole life, you want money. Now, if you have the right to spend your money on something that you want to fulfill, a dream. I mean, otherwise, what's the use of spending your whole life slogging and working for a corporation if you don't have the right to have your own aspirations? So I was very supportive. The idea was that he was taking a loan from a bank and he was building a factory and he was going to do this. The fact is, he took the loan from the bank, and then my mother phoned me and she said, essentially what happened was, when you plan, again, this is another big lesson entrepreneurially, when you make a plan for a project, you've got to know that whatever your plan on paper is, you need to have an emergency fund that is at least double that. Because when you plan income, you're probably going to earn half of that. And when you plan expenditure, you're probably going to spend double of that. That's just how budgets work, unfortunately. So he spent whatever he had taken the loan on. I mean, whatever amount he had taken of loan he had taken was spent, but he needed more money. And at that point of time, essentially, I told my father, listen, if you don't have the financial acumen, how are you going to run a business? And that's when I told him that, listen, you should shut it down. Because before